Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, January 14th, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the talk show that proves without a doubt that the so-called African American did not come to America in the hulls of slave ships. The indigenous people had been here for millennium, and if you want to know the questions, do you want to ask questions or want to know answers to that, please give us a call. Area code 256-849-227, or email us for any question you may have at info@africanamericansaintafricans.org. Tonight, we have a special guest in the house tonight. You know, when you're doing social media, and being that as a group of people, we're not always the way we should be. We're all spread out. But as we talk to each other online, or however we communicate, we run into people who have information that we all think is vital for the community to hear. And tonight we have such a guest. Tonight I want to introduce a brother who has really caught my eye on some things that he talks about in social media. Some of the ways he put forth ideas and the way we should communicate with each other is very, very, very critical to how we should start seeing things. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I would like to welcome Kris Mathis. Kris, welcome to African Americans Ain't Africans.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Kris, I just want to jump right off into it since we had a little delay. And I want to tell us about you. Tell us how Kris Mathis became Kris Mathis and what shaped you to who you are today.
Okay. Put it into a nutshell. Born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Single mother, father on drugs, grown up in poverty, and I'm very thankful that I was able to overcome the obstacles that were in front of me, survived the extremes of growing up in poverty, and went on to have a successful business. I worked in corporate America for a number of years. After 13 years total, actually, in marketing as a whole, I walked away in 2010 and pursued my career as a speaker and as a best-selling author. And so now, for me, I spend my day really focused on helping people, just really sharing a message of how people can create a larger vision for their lives. And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with, is creating that larger vision for ourselves, overcoming the obstacles to get there, and then moving forward into that goal or into that dream that we have for ourselves and for our family. And so for me, that's really what this is all about. It's about sharing that message and encouraging people to go after the better, or the next level, I should say, of their lives.
Kris, what do you see? When I look at you, I see communication, the way you communicate to people, the way you a person can be coming at you one way, but you give it to them another way to just make them go, wow, I never thought of it like that before.
You're very observant.
And so to me, that's motivational, you know, because I know sometime in our communities, we're thinking in the doldrums. Tell us, how can we be better at that?
I think one thing that helps me is my marketing background is in communication. So I've been dealing with words and, understanding the language and just really learning how to put phrases together that make sense to really reach a certain demographic of people for a long time now. But I think that the one thing that I've been able to do, and to speak to what you're hitting on, is having patience. I mean, the reality of it is our people are not, they don't understand financial education. And this is generally speaking, so this isn't specifically, but generally speaking, our people don't understand financial education. They don't understand, some don't even have a vision beyond what's outside their homes. And so when you're talking to people and you're sharing these type of things and they're bringing their negative attitudes or they don't see the vision or whatever the case may be, you have to understand that that's something that's new to them. That's something they've never been exposed to. And it takes a lot of patience and consistency as well. I think consistency is a big part of it, is just being consistent in the message and sharing the message over and over and over, and knowing that if a person sees it enough times, it's eventually going to click. Whether or not they pursue something with it is another story. But the reality of what the message is, they're going to eventually understand it at some point or another.
Why do you think communications is important in the community, especially now?
Oh, my goodness. Communication is everything for us. I mean, we can't grow without it. And I think that's one thing that we as a black people lack, is the communication amongst each other. I mean, if you look at any other race, they employ each other, they work together, they have dinners together, they support each other, they help each other in any and every capacity. We lack that within the African American community. it just doesn't happen for us. And so because of that, and that lack of communication amongst black people, it keeps us divided, it keeps us separated, and it also keeps us at the bottom. I mean, when you have Hispanics come into the country and then surpass blacks when you're talking from an income level in this country, it makes no sense. But at the same time, they're willing to do the grunt work, they're willing to work hard, and they're willing to work together. And again, have that communication, that component that brings it all together. Without that, we have nothing. Communication is the key to everything.
I normally get emails from my sister, and she always ends her emails with this quote: "A heated argument is typically a result of miscommunication or selfishness."
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Is that one of the main problems in communication that we face? We just don't know what we're talking about, or we're just selfish and we're always mad or always got an attitude. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Man, I think you hit me right on the head right there, bro. I think when you speak on it from that angle and the selfishness and the angriness that a lot of us, for some reason or another, carry out, I don't know if it's from their past or what it is that sparks that, but you have to be willing to let that part of it go and be willing to be a student at times. I don't believe in being a teacher all the time. And I'm asked to share on a lot of stages and do those things, but I do believe in being a student. I read a lot of books. I average around 6 to 12 books a year is what I aim for. And I just believe in being a student. And the more I can learn by being a student, the more that I'm able to share. But when I meet someone who's hitting on a subject that I'm not familiar with or something that I don't know, the first thing I need to do is shut my mouth and learn to be a student and learn from that individual. Whether it's right or it's wrong, it still gives me an angle to look at it from that I may not have thought of before. And I don't think a lot of people are willing to do that. A lot of them, they want to be the ones to share. They want to be the teacher. They want to be on the spotlight. It's not even about the spotlight. It's about educating our people on the route that needs to be taken, on what's best for us, and also understanding our past. And I think those are just missing components that we have right now. I mean, including knowing our past, knowing our history.
How can the community improve in these areas? I don't know if you're a teacher or not, but well, you are because your book, and we'll get into your book in a minute. But how can the community improve in their communication skills?
The biggest thing I think with that is, again, being a student to everyone that you meet. Being a student. I mean, when you and I connected, I think we connected through a post in a social media group. But it all happened because of you posting something or I posted something. I don't remember which way it went, but it eventually became an education lesson for one or the other. And through that conversation, the communication developed, and now we're talking today. I think that's the biggest thing, is being a student, understanding when you don't know it all. And actually, I do remember, you have made a comment about Egyptians, and you were good on Egyptians. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm not an expert in regards to Egyptian history and understanding it all. And so for me, when I see those kind of posts from you, it only makes sense for me to sit back, grab a seat, and learn. Versus me trying to tell you that you're wrong, it didn't happen that way, and da-da-da-da-da, which is some of the things that tend to commonly happen. Instead, let me learn. And even if I disagree with you, it doesn't matter, because my goal is to learn from a different angle that I may not already know. That's
right.
What it's all about. And I don't think enough of us are willing to do that. I don't think enough of us are willing to be educated in that manner when we really should be. That should be the way we all go.
Yes, I agree with you on that. It's just that whatever somebody says, we're all supposed to be sucking up energy or sucking up information. And it's just like if we hear something that we've never heard before, the person's head just automatically gets chopped off.
Exactly.
I mean,
and it should never be that way.
Yeah, your book, From Success to Significance, The 8 Keys to Achieving Any Goal or Dream, is a bestseller. Could you tell the audience about that and how you got into being an author coming up? How was your mother influential in that?
Oh man, she was she's definitely a big part of it. Of course, I mean, like I said, she's been there since the beginning. Worked 2 jobs for a good portion of the time to just help us get by, and then to lead it off into speaking. She was the one who encouraged me to go and get the job. I mean, she worked for a company, and most of my family worked for the same company. My grandpa retired from Steelcase, and they all passed through there. She thought that was the best route for me to go. If you're not going to do this or do that, then at least come here, make a decent living, and, pursue whatever it is you want to do from there. And for me, on the other hand, that's not what I was after. I wasn't after the job. I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Even as a kid, I was an entrepreneur. And so I wanted to be in control. I wanted to sign my own paychecks. I wanted to be able to handle everything on my own. And so I began to create that path by starting small businesses and selling at small businesses and investing and then losing money and so on, and just learning as I went and taking those chances. And I think through that process, it led me to where I am now. And the thing that led me back to where I am with the speaking portion of it is I had a career in corporate America. I was working a job, and I really loved what I did in marketing, but then I also come to a point in my life where I realized I was missing something. And the piece that I was missing was I was making great money. I mean, I was enjoying life. I'm taking all these vacations every year, and I'm traveling all over, but the component that was missing for me was I hadn't helped anyone. I had never done anything for anyone, and that's the thing that my family is all about, is supporting and helping each other. And I realized I had went against the values that I was brought up with, and so that was the day that I made the decision that no longer do I want to continue to pursue this corporate career. I need to figure out a way that I can begin giving back to the community, and I did that by just starting as a volunteer, volunteering with high schools and students to share my story and just speaking for free to whoever's willing to take me. And long story short, one day I got a phone call from a lady who offered me $75 to come in and speak. And I thought that was amazing, that they would pay me to come in and do what I thought was just volunteer work. And, I mean, I never thought in a million years that one day this same poor kid from the inner city would not only go on to have a career as a speaker, but to go on to make thousands of dollars doing it. And I don't say that to brag or to impress anyone. The point of me saying that is, I said that to impress upon you that because I was willing to follow my goals, because I was willing to follow my dreams and the things that I knew I was good at and the things I believed in, I've been able to receive blessings beyond what I ever would have thought was ever possible for my life. And I think that's one of the missing components as well for our people is we have very talented black people in our community. Very talented people who can do amazing things, but for some reason or another, they just don't pursue it. They don't pursue it. And if they were willing to take the time out to focus on their craft, develop their craft, master their craft, they'd be amazed at the reward that life would give them in return for simply pursuing what they're already good at and what comes natural to them.
The book is From Success to Significance, the 8 Keys to Achieving Any Goal or Dream. Kris, can you talk about your book for a minute and tell us what it's about and what went into you writing the book?
Absolutely. The book is, I'm excited about this book, and we wrote the book about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, and we did extremely well coming out of the gate with it, and what's exciting about the book for me was not only was it my very first book, but we released it on my 32nd birthday as well. And so for me, it had a sentimental feel to it because as a black man in America, and you know the rates like I do, when you look at murder rates and all these different things that we deal with, most of us are dead between 18 and 25. So the fact that I'm able to do the things that I do now was amazing to me. I didn't expect to be here, and the fact that I'm able to share this message was life-changing. And so I titled the book From Success to Significance because I was at a point in my life where I had the business, I had the career, I had all the success that most young people think is what they would consider success. I had all that. But what I realized I was missing was significance. I realized I hadn't helped anyone, I'd never done anything for anyone, I hadn't donated any money, hadn't supported any causes. And I needed to find something that was greater than the success that I currently had. And that's where the title comes from success to significance, because that was the journey. And then when I break down the story of the book, what you get is actually 100% authentic. The entire book is 100% authentic, my story. No anything, I didn't add any kind of extras or any stories to make it interesting. These are all experiences that I personally went through to achieve the goals and the dreams that I had, from not only growing up in poverty, but being homeless at one point when I was in the middle of building my first business. I was homeless outside of Detroit, Michigan. We were living in and out of hotels for about almost a year in the process of trying to build this business. I suffered a facial paralysis, a rare facial paralysis, about 4 years ago called Bell's palsy. It paralyzed the entire right side of my face. It happened while I was at a speaking event and on stage. I began to develop this paralysis, and I lost 95.5% of the muscle strength and movement in the right side of my face. I don't say these things again to brag or to impress, but the point I'm making is I have overcome a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges to be able to do what I currently do now. And I don't ever want anyone to ever think that it was easy or that it's always been this way. So this is the reason why I wanted to write this book, was to share my story of if I can do it, you can do it. If I can overcome the challenges, you can overcome the challenges. My story is really no different than any other black man in America. It really isn't. I mean, the majority of us come up in a broken home. The majority of us grew up in some form of poverty. The majority of us we know drug dealers, we know pimps, we know prostitutes. The majority of us all come from that kind of a background. But for some reason, there's a handful of us that survive and make it out of that background. Now, what is that handful of people doing that the rest aren't? That's what this book is for. It lays out 8 principles, 8 key ingredients that I personally use to achieve my success, not just in business but also in life, to get to where I come from, to where I currently am now.
Well, can you share some of the keys with us?
Yeah, definitely. I would think the first key, let's start there. The first key of the book is called the reality check. And what I've learned about this with life is the reality check is there's 3 types of people in the world. There are the winners, there are the losers, and there are the contenders. You see, the winners are the people who have already achieved success. These are your Oprah Winfrey's, Michael Jordan, Bill Cosby's, etc. And then you have, these are, at the same time, these are also the people who know that I've got all of it right now. And if I lose it all, I know exactly how to get it all back because they're winners. They know how to make it happen. And then you have your losers. Your losers are the largest of the 3 groups. Your losers are the people who say, you know what, this is my life, and there's nothing I can do about it. My family has lived in poverty all these years. I can't be the first to make a difference. I'm going to stay in poverty. My children will probably grow up in some form of poverty, and the cycle of this generation will continue even after I'm gone. These are the people who have embraced being a loser. They've embraced this belief that they can't be the first to make a difference in their lives. And then you have the contenders. And the reason I call these people contenders is because I'm a huge boxing fan. And in boxing, the contender is always the guy who sometimes is the only person that believes that he can beat the champ. Sometimes no one else believes. The contender knows that if he can get a good punch in there, he can lay the champ out with 1 punch. And that's who the contenders are. These are the people who know they're winners. They know they've got a winning spirit already in them. They just haven't learned how to get there yet. They haven't figured out how to get over the obstacles. They haven't figured out how do I overcome these obstacles and these odds that are against me to go on to do amazing things for my family. These are people that are fighting for that opportunity, and they know if they get that shot, it will literally change their lives. Literally change everything. And so that's where you have to start is by realizing and having your reality check and deciding, who am I? Am I a winner? Am I a loser? Or am I a contender? And the good thing about it is you don't have to stay a loser. You can be a loser and become a contender. But you can also be a contender and become a loser. All with the mindset.
What would you say is the number 1 ingredient you have to overcoming those obstacles? I mean, I know we all have them. Okay, persistency.
Yep, persistency. You got to keep knocking. One thing I've learned about life, I believe life stands for living in fear of excelling. Living in fear of excelling. Life's goal is to keep people in a fear state of mind. Life's goal is to keep people down. Life wants to see you fail. Life knows that if you go on and you succeed and you do something amazing, you're probably going to show others how you did it, and they're going to do it too. Life doesn't want that. Life wants to see you at the bottom. And the number 1 way that life can do that is by way of fear. People nowadays use fears that they weren't born with. None of us are born with those type of fears. There's 2 type of fears that we're born with. That's the fear of falling and the fear of loud sounds. Every other type of fear is something that is learned. You learn it as you grow. And so you can't get older and have these type of fears and expect amazing things to happen. You must be willing to persist and overcome these things. And I've learned, if I go to the door of success and I knock, or this is what most people do, they go to the door and they knock 1 or 2 times, and they say, I guess nobody's home. And they leave and they give up. They quit. But I've learned, if I go to the door of success and I knock, and I knock, and I keep knocking, and I keep knocking, and I keep knocking, eventually someone is going to open. Eventually the door is going to cave in or break down, or someone's simply just going to open up and let me in. But that's the catch. You must keep knocking. You got to keep knocking.
One of the posts on your site, one of the little snippets I just read on your site was, everything you're running away from is in your head. Absolutely. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Absolutely. It goes back to what I said about fear. It's all fear. I mean, we all have that little voice in the back of our mind, whether we admit it or not. There's that little voice in the back of our mind that when we think about something, that little voice will tell us differently. And for a lot of people, I mean, I'll use myself, for example. When I made the decision that I wanted to get into marketing, the very first job that I applied for was a small tuxedo store at one of our local malls here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I remember I went and I used to daydream, because I used to work across the hall at this little deli. And I used to daydream about what it would be like to work over there. And I think, man, it'd be so nice to be able to dress up in a nice suit and tie and help people with their weddings and events and proms and whatnot. And any time that I would think about working at this store, that little voice in the back of my mind would tell me, Kris, you have no experience. Kris, you were born and raised in poverty. Why would they ever give you an opportunity? You've never done anything to earn that shot. Kris, look across the hall. There are no black people working there. What makes you think you would be the first to get the job over there? And anytime this little voice would tell me these things, I would eventually talk myself out of it, and I would allow fear to convince me to not go and apply for the position. Well, long story short, I eventually did apply for the position, and I eventually got the job, and that propelled my career. That was the stepping stone for me to launch off my marketing career, was overcoming that obstacle and realizing that I can do this. I can make this happen. I can do it as long as I'm willing to be persistent and work harder and not allow the fears of life to keep me in this pigeonhole, which it does for a lot of people. And a lot of our people are broken because of those fears. And then those fears that they fight with eventually go from being fears to being excuses. And once they become excuses, that person it's almost impossible for that person to get out of that hole by themselves. It's almost impossible. There has to be some form of help or some kind of a structure put in place for that person to eliminate the excuses, eliminate the fears, and then come back fighting and swinging like never before.
Kris, why do you think in our community, people like yourself and other people who speak like you do and have the ideas like you do, and it's when you speak, it's like you're just letting off bombs with new ideas and you're giving people hope. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that's not more of that in the community?
I don't think there's more of it because I don't think there's some that want to hear it, to be honest with you. I mean that. I mean, there are some people who are content with living in poverty. There are some people who have become content with being broke. And I don't think that it's necessarily that they've accepted it as this is what I want. I think that life has beat them up so bad that they've just embraced and accept their situation, because life is really giving them a fight. And they walk up to the door, they knock one or two times, and they walk away. And I think that's the biggest issue that we have with a lot of them.
If you could grab the ear of every young male in America from the ages of 13 to 20, if you had a magic phone and you could whisper something in their ear, what would you say to them?
You're closer than you think. You're closer than you think. That would be the phrase I would mention to them. And what I mean by that is, somebody once said, opportunity doesn't knock at every door. Opportunity stands beside you patiently waiting to be recognized. And I believe that we all have a skill, a talent, a gift, and an ability that can be utilized and leveraged for our benefit. And I think that every young black male in our country has that. They just haven't recognized it yet. They just haven't recognized it. And if they're willing to take the steps forward to recognize the opportunity that stands beside them every day, the moment they recognize it, everything changes. Everything changes, because once you recognize that opportunity, you can no longer go back to your original way of thinking. I think it was Les Brown who said, once the mind is expanded beyond its current state, it will never go back to its original state.
Wow.
So if our young men will understand that a small Facebook post that connected you and I created what we're having right now.
Right.
That small nugget created what we're having right now. It's the same for every young black male. If they could get that small nugget will literally change their lives. Literally change the entire way they view the world, the way they live their lives, and their current situation. And opportunity, again, stands beside all of us, and it's waving its arms, and it's screaming out, but we don't recognize it. And we have to learn to recognize these opportunities that are in our lives as they appear to us. And as we recognize them, and as we grab hold of them, and we run with them, everything changes. And then you finally realize that you were so much closer than what you even realized. You were really closer than what you really thought.
One of your quotes that it hits another part of the community. We talk about the young males, but another thing, when we're in these chat rooms and we're talking and trying to learn from each other, you posted a quote a little while back, and the quote is, more marriages would last if the husband and wife would just realize they're on the same team fighting for the same common goal. Now,
absolutely.
In the community, I mean, it seems like the black man and the black women are really at each other's throat.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's 100%, but everywhere you turn, I hear brothers talk about sisters, and I'm like, are you serious? And the other way around.
It's sad.
What do you attribute that to?
Boy, the first thing that comes to mind is it reminds me of the Willie Lynch letter. That's the first thing I think about, is what it reminds me. And I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with it as well, but he talks about how to break them. Mm-hmm. He talks about how to break them down in that letter. And I think some of those same tactics that were used there have now been almost put into the mindset of our people and passed on through generations. That's what it seems like to me. And when you speak about it from a marital standpoint, I mean, I think that one of the challenges that we have is our people as a whole, we lack discipline, and we lack structure, and we lack the family foundation that a lot of us grew up with. That's no longer there anymore. I mean, I'm seeing grandmothers at 32 years old.
Right.
That's nuts to me.
Right.
That is absolutely ridiculous. You're in your early 30s and you're a grandmother already. I'm sure when you and I were younger, grandma was 50, 60, maybe even 70.
Right.
You know what I mean? So those things have changed, and it's sad because the thing that I've learned, my wife and I have been married 5 years this year, and the thing that I think that works for us is we created a foundation through way of friendship first. And then we created a stronger foundation by dating for 3 years. And then we created an even better foundation by being married for 4 years before we decided to bring a daughter into this world.
Now,
that my daughter is here, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Was that, so the time frame that you just laid down, now was that planned? Did you guys set out to say, we're going to do this, and this? No. It's just we knew what our situation was, and we knew that neither one of us were in a position to take on that next level together. We weren't there yet. We weren't there. There was no way that we could have brought our daughter Layla into this world and been prepared for the things that comes with having a baby. It wouldn't have worked. So we had to focus on building a foundation first within our marriage, or within our relationship, and then building a foundation within our marriage. So we knew that when our child comes into this world, she has a strong foundation to stand on. And I think that's the missing component with a lot of relationships. They're doing it all completely wrong. They bring the child first and then try to build the foundation. Well, it's too late. That's like building a roof for your house before you build the foundation where your basement goes. It makes no sense. Right.
It makes no sense at all. You can't build a foundation. You can't put the walls up before you build the foundation. And that's what's happening. A lot of people are building their walls and their roof and windows and then try to put the foundation in second. It needs to be done the other way around. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have. And I also think with our young women need to understand they carry more power than what they even realize. Women control everything.
Right.
And if a woman says yes or no, that's what it is. Men will listen if a woman just speaks it out of her mouth.
Right.
And that's not being done. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. I mean, you think, like I said, from a marital standpoint, you see so many marriages end up in divorce and all these different things, and it's simply because they fail to realize that they're on the same team. The moment you and your wife decide to have separate goals and separate aspirations and separate agendas, the relationship is over. You're on the road of divorce at that point. And I think that one thing that's worked for my wife and I is not only do we discuss all of these different things, but we plan our lives out together. Our goals are together. My wife has her own career. She does her own thing. But I have no problems taking a back seat and being a support to my wife in her career. And when it's time for me to get on stages and speak and write books, she has no problem taking a back seat to me and being a support to my career. Why? Because at the end of the day, all of the help, all of the income, everything that's created, all comes back to the same home to support both of us and our daughter. It's all coming back to the same goal. And again, that's about having that common goal. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss. They get married and they expect the honeymoon to continue on for the next 5 years, and that's not the truth. That's one of the biggest lies you can ever be told when you get married, is that your wedding day, that feeling is going to continue for the next 5 years. It just doesn't work that way. It's real life, and you have to be willing to fight together to make it work and fight for the same common goal and realizing that you're on the same team. I mean, it only makes sense. And once you lose that, your foundation begins to crumble, and before you know it, you're on the way to court for that divorce.
Our guest tonight is Kris Mathis, author of From Success to Significance, The 8 Keys to Achieving Any Goal or Dream. Kris, this is your first child?
Yes, first one, man.
How does it feel to be a father?
It's a blessing. It really is. I'm excited about it, man. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was a little nervous going into this. My wife was about 6-7 months pregnant. I got a little nervous. And for me, I mean, I was nervous because I grew up without a father, and I've never seen what a father looks like. I've never had one. I've never had even a father role model, I guess you can say, even a father figure in my life. And so I really wasn't sure what I needed to do to be a father. So I began to connect with other men who were fathers and could help me out through this process and kind of mentor me on this road of fatherhood to prep me as to what I need to know and how to be able to support to my wife to get me there. And so, but so far so good, man. I mean, I feel like every time she smiles at me, that's just confirmation that I'm doing my job right.
Right.
That's how I looked at it.
You know, one of the main problems that persist in the community is the father is never around or not around, and it's kind of, I'm picking off of what you just said about you don't know what a father looks like, and I know you don't mean what it doesn't physically look like, but to have him around and to give you information and to share with you, that's a really big problem in our community. How big of a problem do you think it is?
Oh man, it's huge, and I say that because I think that is one of the issues that we have with a lot of our young men and women. Is think about it this way from this standpoint: if you were born into this world and you don't know your father, you've never met your father, or maybe he just hasn't been around in your life, that means you don't know what it looks like. You don't know what a father looks like. In other words, you don't know what his habits are. You don't know what it's like to have someone there to lean on, to support you and take care of you as needed as a child and growing up. So because a lot of our young people come into this world and don't know what a father looks like, what they do is they go out searching for what they think a father is. They go out and they try to fill the space with what they think a father looks like. And I'll use this quick analogy. I was talking to a friend of mine about ball python snakes. And I own a ball python as a pet, and I've always been fascinated with reptiles and things ever since I was a kid. And so I've had this ball python for a few years, and we were talking about me feeding my ball python. And what I do is I have a box, and I pour the rat into the aquarium, and my snake will find the rat. And what happens is the rat will see the snake and will still stand there, or will get closer to where the snake is, only because they've never seen a snake before. The rat has no idea what that snake is. He just doesn't know because he's never seen one. And before he knows it, he's gotten so close that snake eventually consumes him whole. Well, it's the same for a lot of our young men and women. They don't know what a father looks like. They don't know. And then they try to find things to fill that space or fill that gap, and they get closer and closer to the streets. Drugs, alcohol, sex, childbirth, pregnancy, all these different things to fill that space. And before they know it, they've gotten so close that they're consumed whole by life, consumed whole by their problems. And then before you know it, they're out here hustling on the corner. Before you know it, they're pregnant. Before you know it, they're the ones doing the drugs, not just selling anymore. That's what I think that comes in play when we don't know what a father looks like. And that's just evidence. That shows us evidence of it right there. When you have a child who's never had a father and they don't know what a father looks like, they're going to find things that they view as a potential father or something that could be that lane of a father to fill that space or to fill that gap. For a lot of young women, it comes in the way of having a boyfriend, and then before she knows it, she searches for a father between 3-4 guys, and before she knows it, she's got 4 kids by 3 guys. I mean, there's so many different small things that happen for our young people because they're searching for guidance. They're asking for help. It may not be in the way that most would expect it, but those are cries for help. When you have a young lady who's sleeping around, those are cries for help. When you have a guy who's out there on the streets hustling, and he's really, in other words, he's asking for an opportunity. He's asking for someone to help me get off these streets. Show me how to get off these streets because I really don't want to be out here. That's the job of a father. That's what a father should be doing, is helping his son. A father should be helping his daughter. But when you don't have that, they find another way to fill that space or to fill that gap in their lives. And it just so happens it's in a negative way.
Kris, who are some of the people who inspired you?
Oh, man. Boy, there's a list of them. A lot of my inspiration has come from business people because that's what my career was in. So, I mean, of course, Les Brown, hands down, the #1 motivational speaker in the world, is amazing. He's definitely at the top of my list. Robert Kiyosaki is a financial speaker. He's another amazing speaker. I've read a ton of his books. Napoleon Hill. I mean, I can go on and on. Just a list of professionals that have worked in this industry that have small things in my story that I can resonate with. And I think another thing that I've done also with that is I don't necessarily look up to just one particular type of leader or a certain race of leaders. I have a lot of diversity in the people that have inspired me to pursue my career. And the only reason I say Les Brown has been my top guy because our stories are so similar, of him not knowing his father, or at least not having a relationship with his father, and growing up in poverty. Robert Kiyosaki also growing up in poverty and having a poor dad who told him to go ahead and get a job and go to college and start a career. And his rich dad on the other side is telling him, forget the college, forget the job, start a business and own it and make a ton of money and create wealth for your family. So, I mean, they all bring a different component to the table for me as to how I see it and what inspires me about their stories.
Kris, if you were principal at a high school, what are some of the programs you would implement to help our children? Because it seems that the children aren't getting it from home or the church
right.
or whatever. What are some of the things that you would implement to have our children look at themselves in a different light?
I would have, and it's so funny you mention that because a lot of those things I'm currently working on right now here locally in my city. I'm working on a 20-city speaking tour. And my goal for this tour was not only to come in and give an inspiring message to, students, especially black students who are in the inner city or struggling, but I also wanted to bring in resources that schools don't offer. And what I mean by that is everything outside of academics. Academics is important, and I'm going to let the school handle that. But there are so many components that we lack as a people that we don't have, that's not taught at home, it's not taught in school, it's not taught at the church. And that's not all churches, don't get me wrong, but there's just a lot of bits and pieces. Understanding this whole job market. Understanding the job market. No longer is it okay to turn in a resume and then call 3 days later like it was 15 years ago. Right. That doesn't work anymore. Those days are over. No longer are you competing with jobs locally. You're competing with jobs globally now. People in Asia are trying to get jobs here. Right. I was just reading about the liquor company, Jim Beam. They just got bought out by the Asian company for, I think, $6.3 billion yesterday. Something like that. So, again, now that they own it, they're going to employ their people.
Yeah.
You're no longer competing on a local scale anymore. Another thing that we're also bringing as a component with this tour is understanding financial, understanding how money works. A lot of our people understand how to spend money, but very few understand how money actually works. How to not just spend money as a consumer, but spend money as an investor, spend money as a small business owner or a big business owner or as a specialist in something, and then turn around and watch that money do all the work. I once heard a guy say, when I have money, it's like sending out a bunch of little soldiers, and their whole job is to go out and recruit more soldiers just like them and bring them back home to daddy.
I know that's right.
That's the whole purpose of it. And they don't understand that concept. They believe in putting the work in themselves to earn the check. And those days, I can't even wrap my mind around that anymore. Because if you don't understand residual income, there's no way you're going to make it in 15, 20 years from now. You won't survive.
Kris, why do you think, with all this that's going on, it's like you were saying earlier about this Asian company that bought Jim Beam, of course, the free trade zones that are going up across America, why is it taking our community so slow to react or put ourselves in a position to be able to compete?
I think that a lot of our people are set in their ways. They're set in their ways, they're comfortable, and just to be blunt about it, they've given up. A lot of them have given up. Now, we do have some who are very successful in business and as specialists and doctors and lawyers and a number of other careers, and they understand how money works, and they understand what's happening in the economy, and they're preparing themselves to not get caught in that rat race. But then we have a lot of our people who have given up and have lost their jobs and have given up searching for new jobs and given up searching on educating themselves further to better their situation and have accepted the belief that my mother was on government assistance, my grandmother was on government assistance, I can't be the first to get off of government assistance. They've embraced this belief that that's the way it's supposed to be. I hear stories about young ladies who are having more children for the sake of getting more assistance. That blows my mind. Blows my mind. Young men who could simply, be a little more educated, but instead they prefer to be out on the streets when all it takes is a little bit of education. But at the same time, they lack that support system. They lack that structure. They lack the one component that can literally change everything is by someone just believing in them. And I think that's a part of something a lot of people lack. They don't have that.
Kris, what major city are you close to?
Detroit. Detroit is the closest. Detroit's
Okay.
maybe 2 hours from me. Yep.
Okay, so what's going on in Detroit now? I know we hear the stories, but being a young man that's from that part of that part of the country, tell us about what's going on in Detroit and Michigan for that part.
It's bad, man. I'll be honest. It's bad. I mean, Detroit is down and out right now. Obviously, they filed for bankruptcy, and the city is now being bought up by everyone except black people. The city is being bought up. Houses. I mean, I'm hearing companies that are coming through, and I mean, for example, I read a story a couple weeks ago about a company in China. Maybe it was Japan. It was one of the two in Asia. But this company called the leasing company that was handling all of these foreclosed homes and bankrupt properties over here. And they were like, we want to buy them in bundles of 30s and 40s. And the guy said, okay, cool. When do you plan on flying in to see them? And the Asian guy says, you know what? I don't need to see them. I just want to buy them.
Right.
And that's it. And they started buying them in bundles of 30s and 40s, just like that. They don't need to see them because they understand that eventually this is going to turn around. The market is going to be there. And when it does, they're going to capitalize on it. Regardless if it's houses or not, they'll tear those down and build something else there. I lived over that way for 2 years, but that was a while back. I haven't been over there in a while, and I don't know if it's just a lack of understanding of what's happening. Is the people that just don't have the money to do it, to buy into what's happening, or if they're just giving up. I don't know. I really don't know. I would have to look a little more into that, but I don't understand why these things are just happening and none of our people are acting on it. And at the same time, I think it doesn't help that, with having, from a political standpoint, we had people in office that were corrupt. I mean, they took advantage of the system, they abused the system, they stole money, and that hurt a lot of people. It hurt a lot of people over there. And with Michigan as a whole, I mean, as you know, Detroit is the motor city, Grand Rapids is the furniture city. That's what we're known for, is building furniture over here. But it's the majority of our work across the state is factory work. And factories are hurting right now. Factories are hurting all the way around. And the money is, it's just not there when it comes in the way of jobs. So. Yep, our people are definitely hurting around here.
Wow. So you're 2 hours away from Detroit.
Yeah. And actually, since Detroit has taken its hit, Grand Rapids has become the tourist destination now for Michigan. Grand Rapids has taken over as a tourist destination. I think the next one behind us is going to be Traverse City, which is up north Michigan, where you have all your wilderness and things of that nature. But we get a lot. The city has definitely grown a lot, a whole lot. I mean, more than what I've seen in the last few years. It's blown up big, and Detroit's population has shrunk. I mean, Detroit's population used to be in the millions, and now I think they're under like 750,000 now, 700,000 people.
So Michigan's a pretty big state, and I of course heard the story myself about the Chinese coming up buying up Detroit.
Right.
So
yeah.
what gets me is, and this is what I mean about communication. We have all these schools, we have all these gangs, we have all these for sororities and fraternities. We have all these churches, and it's not like we're not buying up, because I know they're cheap up in Detroit.
Absolutely. You can get a house for $1 over there right now.
And we're not as a group of people taking advantage of this. I find it amazing. Do you think that's because we have been trained to be a certain way?
I can see that. I do. I think that our people as a whole are trained to be consumers. They believe in consumption, taking everything in, but very few understand the ideal of investing for the long term, or putting something in to receive a larger reward, or putting in and not having to do the work, allowing the money to do the work. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there are blacks who are investing behind the scenes. Maybe they're not investing, publicly or as a direct connect to all that property, but they're investing something behind the scenes. And really, they're not putting the work in; they're just putting the capital up to do it. I could see it being done that way, but the majority, absolutely not, absolutely not. And I mean, even if they went and bought the house for $1, what would they do with it after that? Most wouldn't even know where to start.
Right.
They wouldn't know what to even do with it after they bought it for $1. Do I rent it out? Do I sell it? Do I tear it down and build something else here? They don't.
Right.
They don't even know where to begin from that point. They wouldn't even understand how to look at the demographics of figuring out what needs to go in there. Again, it goes back to a lack of education on business and a lack of financial education. Those things are key. You can't buy up anything in Detroit without understanding how those things work. And until you understand how those things work, you buying up property or buying stock or anything for that matter is a waste of money. Because 9 times out of 10 you're going to lose because of your lack of education. I've been to Asia. My wife and I went to Tokyo, Japan on vacation about 3 years ago. And when we were there, actually maybe not long, less than that, maybe 2 years ago. And when we were there, we got a chance to tour the city and of Tokyo and see how they do things and look at their school systems and all these different things. And my wife minored in Japanese in college, so she understood a lot of this stuff already going there. And the things that they do are amazing. It's amazing. They prepare their children for this type of stuff. They prepare them for it. We don't have schools here that teach stocks and investing and all of these different things as the way of generating income. Our schools are mostly built around academics. Now, there may be a school here in a private school or, a charter school that may dabble in some of those things, but you're not going to find public schools teaching that kind of stuff. But out there you will. And their kids are growing up knowing these things. I once heard a guy say when he had his kids, he taught his kids, anytime you receive $1, you spend 70 cents, you invest 30. And that was the principle his kids got from the very first dollar they ever received. And that's also the reason his kids aren't broke today, is because of those principles they learned then. Our people know when you get $1, you spend $1. Every time you get $1, you spend $1. I think it's amazing how fast our people can get money, and they will race to every store possible to spend it as fast as they possibly can. Blows my mind. And I'll never understand why we have such a consumption problem or why, being a consumer is at the top of our priority list. But, I mean, that's what it's come to. And it has to. I don't know what we need to do as a people to break that, but it's got to stop. Or we won't be around in 10, 15 years. We won't be around.
His name is Kris Mathis. He's a motivational speaker. He's definitely motivating me right now. Author, From Success to Significance, The 8 Keys to Achieving Any Goal or Dream. Kris, in your blog, your writings, one of your writings that caught my eye was "Cast Your Rod." Could you give us the thought behind that? And because what I'm really trying to get at, Kris, is what's going through your mind on an everyday basis? Because you get up like all of us, you see the world like all of us do. What is going through your mind to make you look at it from a way that it's not all bad, that it can be better? Talk to us about that.
I know it can be worse. First off, I know it can be worse. I've seen worse. I mean, when you come from nothing, you grow up in nothing, and you reach your bottom of being homeless or whatever you consider your bottom to be. What else do you have to lose? The only other way you have to go is up, because you can't get any lower than what you currently are.
Right.
And that for me, that's what keeps me optimistic. I know that what I've obtained and what I've earned in business and the success that I've had, I know I can lose it all tomorrow. I know it because I've done it before. I've started business. I started my first business when I was 19, and I lost everything within 2 years. It was back to zero. I was in my mother's basement for 4 years trying to figure out how to get my life back on track. So I know what it's like to get it and then lose it all, and then have to get it all back over again. I've been there. And so I stay humble with that because I know I can go that route. And to speak to the Cast the Rod end of it, I was actually listening to another motivational speaker who I had a chance to work with in Florida a few years ago. His name was Andy Henriquez. He was actually holding a training along with Les Brown that I attended. And he spoke about casting your rod, and just so happens I was actually watching a small infomercial on TV, and most people saw this infomercial about fishing. They're seeing this guy cast his rod and use a certain bait and all these different things in regards to getting fish. But what I saw, and when I tied it to Andy's message, what I saw was the guy casting his rod, using the right bait to pull in opportunities to change his life. That's what I saw. And so I'm thinking, okay, man, if I can use the same concept as this guy, getting the right kind of pole, understanding what I'm fishing for, first off, to know what kind of pole, because you can't use a pole to catch bass, the same pole to catch shark. It doesn't add up. There's a certain type of pole you use to catch a certain type of fish. So I had to understand what kind of pole should I be using to catch a certain type of opportunity. Now that I know the right pole, now I got to make sure I use the right bait to lure in that opportunity. And if I'm using the right bait to lure in opportunity and I get that opportunity to get close enough, I'm walking out of there with that opportunity. the same way I would walk out of there with fish. And that's what I've learned. And so for me, optimism has become a part of life. Optimism is who I am. Now, have I always been this optimistic? Absolutely not. Because it's hard to be optimistic when you wake up in the morning and you walk out your front door and you see pimps and prostitutes on one corner and drug dealers on the other and used counters up and down your street and crack pipes. It's very difficult to be optimistic in a time like that. But what I learned as a child was I had to learn to take myself to a place mentally where I could begin to dream about what it was that I wanted in life. I had to begin to dream about what I was after in life. And if I could take myself, I guess what you could say, to my happy place, that would eliminate my reality just for a few minutes. And I can just think about what my life could be like if I could stay in this one place. And then after I began to take myself to that place, then I had to learn, how do I make my dream place my reality all the time? And that is what I did. I focused on taking my dream place and making it my reality. No longer do I ever focus on the negatives and the obstacles and the problems of my life, because I've learned anytime you give a problem or a negative, anytime you give a problem or anything negative attention, it grows. A problem cannot grow without attention from the person. That's the only way for any type of issue to grow. Negative people will only hinder and bother you if you entertain their foolishness. You don't entertain their foolishness, they eventually go away. They can't live. I once heard a speaker say, feed your faith and starve your doubts. You starve your doubts, they will eventually die. And it's the same with negative energy and negative problems. So I couldn't waste my time talking about how bad the system is on black men. I couldn't waste my time talking about how, so many of us get locked up in prison and we got to sell dope to make it and the white man is after us and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I can't waste my time talking about all that kind of crap. Yes, I know it exists. Yes, I know it's a problem. Yes, it's always going to be a problem. But that doesn't mean I got to waste my time talking about it. I've got to focus on how to beat that system, how to maneuver my way around through that maze to get me to where I want to be, and focus and talk about the things that I want. And for me, that meant one day I want to get married. One day I want to have a family. One day I'm going to be able to not live in poverty anymore. One day I'm going to take trips around the world and enjoy life. One day I'm going to have a new car. One day I'm going to make money. One day I'm going to enjoy life and do all these amazing things that I've always dreamed about. And the more I focused on those things and I fed those positives, the stronger they grew. And then my doubts began to starve. And then before I knew it, they no longer existed. When my wife told me she wanted to go to Tokyo, Japan, she was a college student. I never dreamed of going to Tokyo ever in my life. I didn't think that was even possible for me. When you come from the inner city and you come up in poverty, you don't think about those type of things because you never expect them to ever happen for you. And I remember I took her out to dinner one day, and I surprised her with a vacation of 7 days and 6 nights at a five-star hotel downtown Tokyo, Japan for our first wedding anniversary. And the thing with that story that made it so special for me was, yes, it was her dream to go to Tokyo, and yes, I was able to make her dream happen, but for me, it literally changed my life. It literally changed my life because not only am I past the age of 25, which society says that most of us shouldn't live past 25 to begin with, but I'm also doing something that society told me I would never do, and that's travel the world. Society said we're not supposed to even do this. As black men, we should be dead, selling dope, or in prison. Mm-hmm. But I beat those odds, and I went on to do something that most told me it would never happen. That is literally a life-changing moment for me. Literally changed my life because now I know that there's nothing that I can't do. Anything that I'm willing to focus on and feed the positive for will happen for me every time. And I have no other way of looking at it because I went on to achieve things that society told me I would never do, and I went on and done all of them. And now I'm working on a new list.
Well, since you're working on a new list, we're in a new year. What does 2014 hold for Kris Mathis?
The first thing I can think of is a new book. I just started working on my new book this morning. I pondered the idea at the end of last year if I wanted to write another book, and someone reached out to me and asked me a question, actually from the group that we were talking about. I recently got a phone call from a gentleman from that group, and he reached out to me and asked me about fear and some of the challenges of being a young black man looking to start a business and not having a mentor. And that really it encouraged me. It did. It encouraged me. And like I said, I was already pondering and I was on the fence a little, but I leaned and I said, you know what, I've got to write this book. I've got to write it because there's young men like this who need to read it because he's trying to figure it out. And although I'm only one person and I can't help all of them, I can still put a book in their hand and let them be educated from my knowledge and my wisdom of what I've learned about growing a business or how to get ahead in life. So writing a new book, and my book will be on the subject of fear. I'll be highlighting the top 6 or 7 fears that the majority of us deal with, and then I'm going to tell you how to overcome those fears. So that is hands down top on my list. And the other things for me, man, is really the second will be getting this tour kicked off. I've got a 20-city speaking tour that I'm working on. And then the last is just enjoying my family, man. I mean, that for me, that is hands down the number one, is just being a father, being a dad. I think that for me is, it not only has Layla changed my life, but I am able to do the things that I wasn't able to get as a kid. I think for me, one of the things that stands out to me the most, Kerry, when I think about that, bro, and you talk about being a new year, my daughter was asleep the other day, and she woke up, and I heard her, you know, kind of moaning in her sleep, whatever, so I went over there to check on her, and she woke up, and she looked up at me, and she smiled, and she went right back to sleep. And it tore me up inside. It messed me up, because I remember being a kid, and you hearing gunshots outside the window, and you wake up, and I woke up, and there's no one there. There's no one there. There's me. There's just me. And I've got to figure out how to get through this and put myself back to sleep. There's no one to come and hold my hand or to tell me Kris is going to be okay. And so for me, when you talk about being a new year, for me, my focus, my number one and priority beyond my business is just focusing on being the father for my daughter and being there to see everything that she does. Everything. I don't want to miss anything, because those are things that I just didn't have. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't fault my father. He's sober now. He's been sober for a few years now, and we've slowly begun to mend that relationship over the last few years. But the bottom line is, those are things that I didn't have, and there's a million more just like me who have a story and now have children and are attempting to be better fathers to the kids that they have. And for me, that is my number one priority, is being there every day.
So I know a lot of people, when they have those relationships with their dads, they try to stay as far away from their dads as they possibly can. When you talk about your dad, what made you want to go back and say, no, I can't do it this way?
Well, I don't believe in holding grudges, first off. I believe, if you're going to hold a grudge, the most damage that's going to be done is to you, not to them. I mean, you're the one that's got to deal with the pain and the anger on the inside, and it's going to eat you alive before it eats them alive. That was the first thing. The second thing that I had to realize, and I struggled with this for many years. My father was on drugs for 22 years. I'm only 33, so that's well over half of my life. And so for me, what I had to learn and understand about it was that even though he was dealing with an issue, even though he was on drugs, I had to view it as a form of a sickness or a cancer, almost like, because it's like a flu even. He made a mistake, he got involved, something he shouldn't have been in, and now it's taking over his life. And without the proper help and procedures put in place, he can't overcome this obstacle. But when he does make the decision to overcome this obstacle and get his life on track, I can't allow that to be a reason why we can't, attempt to mend this relationship in some form or fashion. And the last thing is, I had a friend of mine who had got into a small little, disagreement with his father, and he called me and we spoke about it. And he was telling me, his dad doesn't, necessarily support his business ventures and some of the things that he's working on, and how he was going to reach out to his dad to have a conversation about it. Well, he reached out to his dad to have that conversation, and his father died a week later. Later after that. December 16th of last year, his father passed away. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that held through his grudge against my father all these years, and then my father passes, and then there's something that's still inside me that I wish I had told him, and it eats away at me for the rest of my life. So, again, I don't believe in holding grudges, I'm a patient guy, I really am. And so I feel that, regardless if we ever have a true father-son relationship, I doubt it highly, because I'm grown. I got kids of my own now at this point. But that doesn't mean that we can't have some form of a relationship where we can still be on speaking terms. We can still talk every week and say hello and do all these different things. I need to at least be there at the absolute least. I can't continue to hold a grudge forever.
Author and motivational speaker Kris Mathis is joining us this evening. Kris, could you talk about the 5 things that people told you that you would never do?
I know exactly what you're hitting on. I'm trying to see if I can remember all 5 of them. Right. People told me if I didn't go to college, I would never succeed. And I dropped out of college after 6 months. And I've had a very successful career in business, without a doubt. done well. People told me I would never make it out of the hood. Told me I would never make it out of the inner city, and I overcome that obstacle as well, and I survived that. What are the other three on there? I can't remember our memory here.
No, I just
forgot all about those.
No, man, because that's what I mean. And these are the building blocks. These are the building blocks that you have set out for your life. Because, like you
Absolutely.
say, we all overcome obstacles. So I know some of the obstacles we have are the people that we live right next door to.
Man, you hit it.
You told people told you would never write a book. They told you would never have a career as a motivational speaker. You know. They told you
Family
wouldn't have
told me that. Family told me those things would never happen for me.
Now tell me. Now let's talk about that for a minute, because the family is supposed to be the last bastion that we're supposed to go to for support and inspiration. Tell me, what is it? How does it feel when you go to the family and they just turn their back on you, like you ain't gonna be nothing? How is that? Is that more motivation, or does that just? How does that make you feel?
To be honest with you, in the beginning, it hurt. It hurt the first time it happened, but eventually became motivation for me. And it's actually, the chapter of my book is called The Struggle. And that struggle is about my family and my lack of support from my father and some of the challenges I had to overcome. But what I've learned is anytime you attempt to do something great, anytime you go after a goal or a dream that's greater than what you currently have, you're going to go through a struggle, and people aren't going to support you. People aren't going to believe. The people who told you they were friends and family aren't going to be there because they don't see the vision. They don't see the vision for this crazy idea that you say you have to go and do whatever it is that you say you want to do. And what I've learned about that, and what I've embraced and accepted, is if a person doesn't see it, it's only because they're not supposed to. The vision wasn't given to them; it was given to me. And if they were supposed to see it, they would have gotten it too. But they didn't get it. It was given to me. And as long as I can see it, that's all that matters. Nothing else matters after that. As long as I can see myself standing on stage and speaking in front of audience all over, in front of hundreds and thousands of people, as long as I can see myself writing books and doing all those things, that's all that matters. And I'll tell you, when I decided to write the book, some people told me I was crazy. And the thing I've learned with that is, if the people in your circle, your friends and your family, if the people closest to you when you share your idea with them, if they don't call you crazy, deranged, delusional, or something in that arena, if they don't call you those things, then your dream or your vision isn't big enough. It's not big enough.
Right.
They need to call you something that's off the handle, because then you know what, I'm on the right track. Because the people who are close to you, if it's big enough, they don't believe.
Right.
So if they're believing, it's only because you're not dreaming big enough. You got to dream much bigger to force them into a state of say, really, you going to do that? Well, why don't you go do this instead? No, don't do it. That ain't going to work out. No, you should do it this way instead. When they begin to tell you things like that, then you know you're dreaming and thinking big enough. And that I think that revelation hit for a lot of people who were close to me when they attended my first book signing, and they saw a line stretched out of Barnes & Noble out into the mall of people standing in line to wait to buy a copy of my book and get it autographed by me. And I don't say it to brag or to impress, but the point I'm making by that is I followed what I love, I did what I believed was the vision for my life, and I executed, even when the people around me didn't believe. But they sure did believe when they saw those people standing in line. And that line stretched out the store, and I eventually became the second highest selling author at that Barnes & Noble location since Sarah Palin in 2009. It's amazing. I mean, we moved almost 100 books within like an hour and a half.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
I want to take a quote from you. One of the fastest ways to set your children up for failure in today's America is to send them into the world with only one skill, a job. We must train our youth to be multi-talented, so when we are faced with challenges in the workforce, they can easily make the transition when needed. What do you think the importance of teaching our youth entrepreneurship? Could you speak on that?
Oh, my goodness, man. That is my passion right there. That is my number one passion outside of speaking, is educating youth on how to own a business. Because one of the mistakes that, and this is where I told you my parents all worked at a factory, and they encouraged me to go work at a factory. I'm thankful that I didn't take that route, because if I had to went to work for that factory, I would have got laid off like every other employee there, and I'd be unemployed. I took the route of the unknown, and I took the path that no one wanted to take. The thing I've learned about this teaching kids entrepreneurship is parents don't encourage their children to be entrepreneurs because they failed. That's the bottom line. A lot of parents fail at achieving their own goals and dreams. So because they failed at achieving their own success, and they took that bottom-end job or they took that factory job that they hate, and it pays the bills, they encourage their kids not to take those gambles and take those risks because they don't want their kids to fail the same way they did. When in reality, what they don't realize is they're setting their kids up to fail anyway by encouraging them to go and get one skill of pushing a button in a factory for $15 an hour, when in 10 years, that job will be eliminated by a robot to push that same button at no cost. So we have to encourage our children to not just be about, having that factory job, but encouraging them to understand wealth, understanding how money works, and then, like you said, understanding how to have more than one skill, because the reality of it is we work in a global economy that's constantly evolving and changing. And the only ones that are going to survive are those who are willing to change with it. And those who have one skill will be eliminated. You will eventually be eliminated. Perfect example, think about the cashiers who work in grocery stores around the country, who may have done it for 10 years, 15 years. And then all of a sudden they get that pink slip that their job is being eliminated because now they have a self-checkout being put in where they only need one person to manage 3 registers now.
Wow.
Perfect example. It's being done all over. It's being done all over. And now that person, what else can they do? Because they've punched that cashier button for who knows how many years, and they don't know how to do anything else. So it's key for me, when I speak with high schools especially, that I encourage youth, even if you don't want to own a business, at least understand how it works. So if the day ever comes and that's your only option, you know how to do it. Right. At the absolute least. At the absolute least. I'm not telling you to go and own a business tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. And you're always going to have some naysayer in the back who says, well, everybody in the black community isn't supposed to own a business. Who's going to do the work? It's not about owning. It's just understanding how to own. It's understanding how it works. Because that day is going to come where your job may be eliminated. And when that day comes, you're either going to be in that line getting food stamps, or you're going to be in the other line at the bank getting a loan to start that business because you understand how it works. Those will be your options. And so, I can't stress enough how important it is that our youth understand that. Our youth have to understand the understanding of owning a business at a young age and how money works at a young age. If not, they're going to grow up and be consumers and be failures because they only know one thing. And then I think and to add on to that, the worst thing that we can do as adults is tell our kids they can be anything they want to be and leave it at that. And what I mean by that is this. Yes, I agree. Our kids can be anything they choose in life. Whatever they say they want to accomplish, I truly believe that they can do it. But we fail to tell them it's hard. It's hard. I mean, let's just be honest. Life is hard. Starting a business is hard. Going to a job you hate is hard. Dealing with life is hard. Marital problems. The bank account is overdrawn in the negative. The lights are shut off. There's no food in the refrigerator and no gas in the car to get you to work tomorrow, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to make it. Life is hard. Let's just be honest with the kids and just tell them the truth. But at the same time, we need to tell them that it's worth it. And so if a young person tells me, Kris, here's my goal, I'm going to challenge them. I'll say, okay, so what are your plans to reach that goal? How are you going to get there? What are you going to do? Okay, cool. Now that you know that, what exactly is it going to take for you to accomplish that? And I want to have that conversation so they have an understanding and they can begin to think about, is that exactly what I want to do? Because right now we encourage all of our kids to go to college and get degrees. In other words, what we're telling our kids is, you need an education to go and work for somebody's company, but before we do that, we're going to put you $100,000 in the hole in debt first. So then when you get to that company, you can use that money they pay you to pay off all that debt before you can begin your life. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, for $100,000 in debt at school, I might as well start a business for half of that.
Right.
3/4 half. You know what I'm saying? 25% will start me a business.
Right.
Depending on what kind of business it is. So these are the things that we don't give our kids these options. We simply tell them based on our failures as adults and our losses and where we messed up. And we tell them, no, you don't want to do that because this is what happened to me. Well, what happened to you doesn't matter because this is in the same story. It doesn't matter what happened to you. Give them an opportunity to go out there and learn through trial and error, make their mistakes, learn from it, become stronger as a person, so when they get later on in life, and God forbid they take a job that is eliminated like that, but if they do take that route and it is eliminated, they're prepared to make the transition. Because right now, a lot of our youth are not prepared to make that transition. A lot of our adults aren't prepared to take that type of a transition. As we can see by the way the job market constantly changes, and people are laid off, and welfare numbers are changing, and budget cuts, and all these different things. It's ridiculous. All because they had one skill.
Right. Kris Mathis has a blog. I would advise everybody, if you just want inspirational readings, motivational readings, go to his blog site. He has a few writings that I'm sure would motivate anyone who's reading them. Kris, the one of my favorites on your page is "My mom only had one eye."
You're right.
Yeah, and could you share that with the audience? Because I've seen that many of times, not only in my life but other people's life. Maybe not the same, maybe not the exact same thing, but something similar. Could you share "My mom only had one eye" with us?
The way the story goes, and I'll kind of sum it up from what I remember here. But the way the story goes, there was a young man his mother was missing an eye, and he was embarrassed by her. I mean, that's what it comes down to. He was embarrassed by her, and she would show up at his school, and he would be embarrassed because his friends would look and stare and point and everything. And one time she made a trip up there to I think work at the school or something along those lines. And he told her he didn't want her there, he didn't need her there. And then of course he eventually got older, had a family of his own, and she stopped by his house to visit his family. And he had I think a daughter, and it scared his daughter because my grandmother's missing an eye. Daughter starts crying. Dad freaks out, yells at his mom, and says to never come by again. And so she eventually, it broke her heart, of course, and she went on about her life, and she wrote him a letter. And in that letter, she explained to him why she only had one eye. And what he failed to realize was that when he was a baby, he was born with one eye, and she was willing to give up one of her eyes to make sure that he could live a normal life. And so the reason that story really resonated with me is because we don't give women enough credit. We don't give women enough credit for the things that they go through and the things that they're willing to do for us as adults, as men, whether it's in the form of a mother, a wife, a grandmother, whatever form that they be in, they deserve a lot more credit. And when you're in a situation and you have a great relationship with the woman, again, whether it's a mother, grandmother, girlfriend, wife, whatever your situation is, and they're going above and beyond the call of duty for you, it only makes sense to recognize them. It only makes sense. I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up, and you're going to have a lot of guys running out to do stuff for the sake of Valentine's Day. But then you're going to have some women out there who are going to be recognized every day of the year, and Valentine's Day then will come around and just be another day. It should not happen that way. It should be something that they be recognized all the time. I appreciate my wife. I thank my wife. I tell her how much I love her all the time because of what she not only does for me as a husband, but for our daughter. That deserves praise all year long. It shouldn't be something that's done once or twice a year.
You speak about living life with a sense of urgency, and in that story, it's a guy that he was a procrastinator, and he procrastinated so much that he eventually just dropped dead of a heart attack. That seems to be a major problem in our community. Can you touch on that?
Absolutely. I mean, not only is the heart attack with heart disease and all the bad eating and some other things that we have, but the procrastination portion of just going after our goals and our dreams. The reality of it is we don't know how much longer we're going to be here on this earth. And I think it was Aurelius who once said, stop living your life like you have 1,000 years left to live. You can be here today and gone today.
Right.
And the reality of it is, for me, when my wife and I got married and we decided we were going to have kids, we began the process of setting up a life so God forbid anything were to happen to me, but if something were to happen to me, it would prepare my family to be taken care of long after I'm gone. I began to do things and create incomes and residual incomes specifically that would take care of my daughter long after I'm gone. By way of me writing books and doing all these different things, I don't want my daughter to have to struggle. I don't want my wife to struggle after I'm gone. Our generations of people have no problems leaving our children with nothing. And that's the reality of it. They left with nothing. A lot of times they die and there's no kind of life insurance you can pay for the funeral. And now they're scraping to try to get funeral costs. I mean, that mindset, that procrastination mindset has to change. And we need to be able to prepare our kids to set them up for an easier life, not the same hard life that we just went through. Make their lives easier by not being a procrastinator and understanding that you can be here today and gone today. And preparing them for what's to come. And I would even say, to tie on to that, one of the other big components that comes with that is the fact that so many of our people are quick to defend their limitations. Mm-hmm. They believe in defending their limitations and defending their struggles and defending what they're not good at and defending living in poverty as if it's okay, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, that makes no sense to me. I'll do a quick analogy. There was a guy who was sleeping in an alley behind this, or next to this dumpster, and this guy was once successful, was married, had kids, and he just fell off. I mean, lost his job, wife left him, daughter disowned him, doesn't talk to him, and now he's in this alley as a homeless man. And what he would do is he would go digging through these dumpsters, and he would get his food together, and he would wrap his food up in his bag, and he would sit it behind this dumpster. Well, one day he did that, and he took off for the day, and he came back to that dumpster to get something to eat, and he realized that someone had stolen his food from behind that dumpster. And he immediately got upset, and he went around and he's asking all the homeless people in the alley if anyone stole his food, and everyone is saying no. And before he knew it, he was irate, and he's yelling and he's fussing at everybody because someone just stole his food. And at that particular moment, that's when he had the epiphany, and he realized, why am I defending trash? Why am I working so hard to protect trash? And that's when he realized that I'm better than this. I have more than this. I can do more than this. I come from doing more than this. So why am I now all of a sudden protecting the trash that no one wants? And a lot of us in life are protecting trash. We defend our limitations and we protect the trash in our lives. Living in poverty is not where we're supposed to be. It's not even an option. That's not the way we're designed. We're not designed to live in poverty our whole lives. We're not designed to be able to be broke for our whole lives. So we need to stop defending these things and being so offended when people speak the truth out to us that there is an opportunity for us to have better, because the opportunity is there. If there's one black person in America who has overcome the obstacles and achieved any form of success that you can relate to, then it can be done. I don't care how bad you think the system is. I don't care what you think white people are doing to us. I don't care about any of that crap. If there's one that's overcome it, then it can be done. The only catch is you have to figure out how to make your way through the same maze that they did. That's the only catch. You got to figure out how to get through that maze, stop defending this crap, and make your way through that maze to get a better life.
A lot of times we talk about our children because we see that the children are coming up through a system and we want them to be prepared for it. But in one of your blog writings, you talk about dreams have no age limit. And a lot of times I know as we get older and we do procrastinate, is sometimes we look up and we are older and we aren't where we want to be. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's any age limit. I don't think there's any. There is no time to give up. I think we all have our time. Even at 60 years old, you'll still have things that you want to do in life. The one thing that you don't want is you don't want to be on your deathbed and you look up and you see standing next to your bed, you're looking at your goals, your dreams, your talents, your gifts, and your abilities. And they look down at you and they say, only you could have given us life. But because you chose not to, now we must die with you. That's the one thing that no one wants. No one wants to be on the deathbed and say, I wish I could have. I wish I had have done this or done that. No one wants that. So I don't believe in there being an age limit. And I've even had some success with my book because I've had people as young as, middle school kids, 11, 12, 13 years old, and as old as 50, 60 years old, who have read my book and found value in it. And the reason being is because at a younger age, when you're going through your 20s, your 30s, and your 40s, you're still earning. You're still earning and trying to find your way in some cases, and you're still enjoying life and having your success. But once you reach over that 50 or 60 mark, it no longer is about the success anymore. Now it's about the significant value, and that's what I've learned with a lot of the older people that I meet. They really want to just give back. They want to be involved. They want to support young people. They want to help young people. They want to educate and teach them what they've learned in all these years of their lives. And it's about the significant value. So regardless of what your age is, if there's a goal that you haven't accomplished yet, if you're still living, that means there's still time. That's the bottom line. If you're still living, there's still time. And that time isn't up until you're dead, until you're off this earth. But if you're still living, there's still time to make that dream happen.
Kris, tell us, where's the wealthiest place in the world?
Oh, man. The graveyard, man. Wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard. And I say that because That's where all the people who chose not to pursue their goals, to pursue their dreams, they chose to take all of those multi-million dollar ideas or even multi-billion dollar ideas to the grave with them. And they chose not to share them with the world. I think that, just imagine what life would be like for us if Martin Luther King didn't decide to march on Washington. Imagine if Malcolm X decided not to speak up and just clean his life up and join the Nation of Islam and take that trip to Mecca. What if he decided not to do any of these things? What if he just said, you know what, I'm not the guy for that job? Where would we be as a people? I mean, I hate even think about where we would be. But you just think how many people have goals, ideas, dreams that they know could change this world, but they don't pursue them. And before you know it, they take it to the grave with them. And I think, again, that's one of the worst things you can do, because not only have you kept it a secret from all of us who could benefit from it, but you've also kept it a secret from the closest ones to you, and that's your family. Those are the ones who could truly benefit from you leaving your gifts here on earth. I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, when I go to the grave, the point of going to the grave is I want to make sure that I go all used up. I want to go all used up. Jim Rohn once said, don't let life find you. When life comes for you, don't let it find you when life comes for you, don't let it find you sliding down an old mountain. Let it find you climbing a new one. Mm-hmm. No one wants to be at that point in their life where they've just given up and just taken everything to the grave with them. Be at that stage where you're sharing everything you have and leaving it here, going to the grave all used up, to where there's nothing left in you because you've left it all here in us. You left it all here with us to continue that legacy, to carry that legacy on, to carry that wealth of knowledge on, to carry that information on. I mean, when you look at like Apple, the perfect example, look at Steve Jobs. Imagine if Steve Jobs had kept all those ideas of the iPad and the iPhones and the Macs and all this stuff with him and took it to the grave with him. Technology would not be what technology is today. He changed the game.
Yes.
If Damon John had never started FUBU, who's to say that we would have so many other black people stepping up wanting to start clothing lines? But fortunately, he decided to leave that here with us before he decides to go. He left it here with us. So we got to make sure that we're leaving everything here on earth. Leave it all here. Don't take it with you to the grave.
Kris, expound on the common reason why most people never make it in life.
Oh, man. There's a few reasons. I'm going to say one of the most common reasons most people don't make it in life is fear. A fear of failure, fear of rejection, a fear of success even, which is very common. They're afraid of succeeding and what their life is going to turn into and what they may even turn into and how are the people around them going to perceive them. I mean, there's such a long list. But that fear of succeeding is something that can be overcome. It's something that should be overcome as long as you're willing to stay humble and grounded. I mean, there's no reason you can't make it happen. So,
share with us the power of significance, because one of the things you just said is a lot of people, whatever they're thinking, whatever they want to come up with or create, they seem to hit a road bump by what other people think and what other people say or what other people may think about them. And that a lot of times I have found have slowed a lot of people up.
Absolutely.
Could you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that the whole thing with the roadblocks, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to, I guess you can say you almost have to train for it. You got to train it. Again, I go back to sports or boxing or any sport for that matter. When you look at athletes, they have to condition their bodies to take on the wear and tear of the NBA for 82 games a season. Baseball players have to train and condition their bodies to take on 182 games a season. And same when it comes to going after your goals and dreams. You have to condition yourself to deal with the obstacles, the roadblocks, the challenges, and understand there's probably going to be more rainy days than not. But also the thing I've learned with that is no storm in the history of the entire world has ever come and stayed. It's never happened. No storm has ever come and there's never been a tornado that has shown up in a city and stay forever. Every storm must leave. The catch to surviving the storm is, are you prepared and conditioned to weather it when it gets there? That's the difference. You got to be in a position where you're prepared to weather it. And most people aren't in that position. So it's important that if you have a goal or you have a dream, before you begin to that journey and to jump on that route, it's important that you begin to prepare yourself mentally and physically and emotionally to weather that storm and the struggles and the heartaches and the hard times that are going to come. Because there is no doubt in my mind they're going to come. They're going to come. It's inevitable. It's just a matter of whether or not you're going to survive them or not, and be prepared for those tough times as they show.
Kris, one of the quotes that you wrote that I like too is, if you give a poor man money, he's still a poor man. You give him the wisdom to make money, he then becomes rich and is able to help others. And that quote goes through my mind every time I'm out and about and I see brothers coming up asking for a quarter, 13 cents, money that's not there's a message there. And I know a lot of us, as we're out and about in the cities, we're running into these same situations.
Right.
Talk to us about talk to us about that for a minute.
I think that the thing with that quote is, I mean, we can give out money all the time, and again, I can tell that just about anybody, especially with our youth. Our young people come up and we buy them Jordans and all these different things and just crazy stuff. In other words, what we're doing is we're literally just giving them money and we're training them at a young age to become a consumer. At a young age is what it comes down to. Instead, what we need to be doing is parting them with wisdom, putting that wisdom into them to where they understand money, not just giving them a handful of money to go out and buy what they want. Giving them the wisdom to understand money and how money works, and you can make them into a rich person. And that doesn't necessarily mean financially rich. That just means rich in values. That means rich in their giving to others, because now they're no longer just giving financially, they're also giving wisdom. It was the 8 levels of charity, which you can find online. If you just Google 8 levels of charity, the 8 levels of charity is a Jewish teaching, and the Jews believe that the giving money is one of the lowest forms of giving there is. It's one of the lowest forms of giving there is. The number one form of giving is to give someone an opportunity. So for me, I'm not a big fan of just giving money. Even when I donate money to organizations through the events that I do, I'm not there to just donate money per se, because for me, I want to bring in resources that can add value beyond the money. So I'll partner with organizations who can bring in employment resources and mental health service resources and financial resources. So again, I don't believe in that whole theory of just giving a poor man money, because it doesn't no good, because at the end of the day, he's still going to be broke. We have to be able to, again, to part that wisdom into them and help them understand how to make money, how to make a living, and then what to make that money into to make that money continue forward without them having to put all the work in. That can make them into a rich man. And then you show that person how to part that wisdom into someone else. And now before you know it, you've created a new generation in those family lines.
Kris, in closing, you have a quote on your blog that states this.
I'm losing you for a second. Phone's
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you now.
Okay. One of your quotes in your blog is, "Poor black boys are treated as problems. Well, they're treated as people." In closing,
okay, you cut out at the end. I don't know what's going on all of a sudden.
Okay. How about now?
It's worse now.
Yeah, it's still worse.
Yep.
I hate when this happens. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I can vaguely make out what you're saying.
Poor black boys as problems. Well, they're treated as people. Did you hear that?
I couldn't even get it.
Poor black boys. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
I hear you, but I can vaguely make it out.
Poor black boys are treated as problems. Well, they're treated as people. You remember that quote?
Yes. Okay, I got it now. Yep, I do remember that.
How are you, me, and the other brothers who may be listening to this program? What are the best ways we can do to make these black boys not seem like they are a problem and make them seem like they are people?
I think the one thing that we can give our young people that a lot of us don't do is time. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned. With all the schools that I work with, middle schools, high schools, colleges, whatever, I've never had a student ask me for money. I've never had them ask me for food, anything. They always ask me for my time. And I think being able to just simply spend time, I think a part of that comes into play that there's a lot of fatherless homes, a lot of fatherless children who are, again, seeking out guidance and direction and instruction from a father figure. And so I think that giving them our time and just educating them by way of our conversation and those relationships is where the value is. And I think that will better prepare some of our young people for what's to come in life, especially our young men. It will prepare them for what's to come, because the reality of it is, it's hard for us. It's hard. There's a lot of obstacles that we have to overcome, not just to be successful, but just simply to survive in this country. Thriving is a whole other conversation, but there's a lot of obstacles that come along with it. And I think by way of just having those conversations and leading by example and being the example and just showing them, here's how you do it. Here is how it's done, step by step, and being there to correct them when they mess up. And do that correction in a constructive manner, that it's not just bashing them, but being constructive with them and praising them when they do right, giving them constructive criticism and correction when they do wrong. Those are the components a lot of our people don't have. And so a lot of our young men and women will go out, and before you know it, they've never received that type of correction. So then they're just loose. They're just wild with it because they've never had that kind of correction. So when they finally do get someone that corrects them, it's foreign to them. And it's almost a form of disrespect, because they've never been in a situation to receive that kind of correction. But if we start them young and we prep them for these type of things, they will embrace and appreciate that correction as they get older.
Kris Mathis is our guest. From Success to Significance, the 8 Keys to Achieving Any Goals or Dream. Kris, in closing, what would you like the audience to know?
I'll give them this. It's a quick poem that I wrote a while back, and you can find it at the back of my book. It's something I've tried to become known by with all the events that I do and whatnot. The poem is titled "To Live Your Dreams." To live your dreams, you must be willing to fight for it. Make steps every day and night for it. Be willing to give up time and sleep at night for it. Have patience, work hard, and do more than just try for it. Remember, Martin had a dream and he was willing to die for it. You have to believe and have dreams at night about it. Feel your life is just useless and incomplete without it. Be willing to take a setback to reach it. And know that others before you have achieved it. Know in your heart that you cannot be defeated. Use all your strength, skills, and prepare to take action. And not reaching your goal is never an option. Stay moving forward towards your goal till you hit it. And I promise, through the power of God, you'll get it. Thank you.
Kris Mathis, thank you for being our guest tonight. Thank you for the inspirational words and the motivational words. How can we get your book?
Thank you. Any bookstore, man. Amazon.com, Google Books, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Schuler Books, Borders, Books A Million. Just about any bookstore you can find worldwide carries it in every form, from your paperbacks to your audiobooks. You can also get it at audible.com or Amazon. You can also get it in ebook form as well, for like your iPads, your Kindles, and things of that nature. So you can go to the physical stores and get them, or you can always just order one right online. And you can also go to my website at krismathis.com as well and get copies there.
Kris, thank you so much for being our guest this evening, and I'm sure we got to have you back. You're very inspirational, Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing your gifts with my audience. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. And I want to tell you in 1 second, I appreciate you putting something like this together, because the reality of it is there aren't enough of us doing this type of stuff that's giving each other, even each of us, a platform to share our messages together on, to encourage our people. So I want to commend you and thank you for not only having me as a guest, but for putting something like this together, because it's absolutely needed. Well, absolutely needed.
As long as we got brothers like you, there'll be brothers like me helping get the word out.
Man, I'm with it.
All right, Kris. All right, brother. We're gonna talk soon, man. And again, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us for another evening of African American